Hi, welcome to our second session on playing chords. I'm Richard Rossi, and I did another session, if you haven't seen it, on amysflashcards.com, and this is continuing further with chords. That song I was just playing was in the key of E, and let me show you a trick with your E chord. The chart shows you that on the E chord you play you put your first finger on the first fret on the third string, your third finger, ring finger, on the fourth string, second fret, and then right behind it your second finger there. There's your E chord. Now you're playing all 6 strings on the E chord. I'll show you a trick that'll really amaze your friends and impress your friends. Considered the ultimate guitar song to play is a song called Malaguena. And Malaguena, the main riff of it is pretty simple. You're just taking your E chord and sliding it up. And that's another way to think outside the box with chords, is moving the chords around. A lot of the chords you can slide up. Some even go up to the 3rd fret. And a lot of it's in the flair of how you do it. Like, but if you even do that much, you don't have to tell them how easy it is. You can just tell them you're playing Malaguena. They'll be very impressed. When I was a little boy, I was playing in the clubs and performing on guitar with older musicians. My father and many of the other musicians that I played with were middle-aged, and I was just a kid. And on the Musicians Union, they would get a 15-minute break every hour, and we'd play for about 45 minutes a set, and then they would go and take their break and be mingling with people or getting something to drink. But since I was a kid, I was supposed to stay on the bandstand. I wasn't allowed to go up to the area where the adults were. And so I would think of ways I could entertain by myself without the rest of the band. So when I learned Malaguena, I saw it would just impress everybody, and you could hear a pin drop when I would do that, just that little E. So take that E chord. Now there's a lot more to Malaguena that's a lot harder, that all these other sections, But the main thing everyone remembers is that E chord. So just play with that. And you can slide up chords, and this is another fun way to experiment, is sliding your chords up and down the neck. There's a band, Yes, that had a song where they just took a C chord and they added their little finger, and they were doing all kind of weird things with their C chord. I've done that trick with sliding up chords myself to write songs. I have a couple songs on a CD called The Kingdom is Near that's on Amazon. If you put in Richard Rossi, The Kingdom is Near. My kids, Karis and Joshua's favorite song that I did in that record was Street Preaching Man. And I was basically, in the main section of the song, just taking my E chord that we just did and sliding it up to here, all the way up to the 4th fret, and then all the way up to the 6th fret. Pretty simple, but I got a song out of just sliding up that one chord. I went, listen to my story if you think you can. It's just the E sliding up. About a wonderful witness, street preaching man. He's got long hair and a shaggy beard. Some folks love him, but most think he's weird. Very simple. I had another song that I wrote called Light on the Road, where I was experimenting with taking an A chord. Now, you can get the A like this or like this, with first, second, third finger, second, third, fourth finger. But you can also bar it and just play it like a bar right across the 2nd fret, the first 4 strings. But I wrote a song, Light on the Road, that came out of me just experimenting with sliding up the A chord. And a song about the conversion of the Apostle Paul. But it went... The main part of it, now I did embellish that more with bar chords and other things on the record, so... I of course build on that, but the main thing of the song, the main beginning of the song, could be the A chord just sliding up. And that's the way the song started. So many things you can think about with chords as you're learning them is you can have fun trying different things, sliding the chord up the neck. We talked in the last chord lesson about embellishing chords, like the D chord. I was giving you an example of how you can add that little finger when you have your D chord, and you see the chart with the D chord, how to play it. If you add your little finger on the 1st string, 3rd fret, you can put that down and lift it up. You'd be amazed how many popular songs use that little trick with the D chord, and it sounds fantastic. There's a group, Boston, that had a big hit, which started out, but they were just taking the D chord, putting the little finger down and lifting it up. Stairway to Heaven, before it goes to the fast part. I mentioned that example before, forgive me for repeating myself, but right before it builds to the fast part, they take the D and they go. See? And so you can take just about any chord. We had the E chord we were working on earlier. You can put your little finger there, and it's basically doing to the E what I just did to the D, which is called the suspending, but it's adding that one note. You know, I'm adding my little finger behind my third finger there to the E chord. Let's take an A minor chord. You can look on the chart for the A minor and see that we have the chord chart on amysflashcards.com, and Steve can also insert this A minor. But you see, normally you play that A minor. It's just like the E chord you just did, but you're just kind of moving the same configuration finger-wise. You're just moving everything over a string. But let me say I want to think outside the box and be a divergent thinker instead of a convergent thinker, which a convergent thinker thinks there's one right way to do this chord and I just play it that way and that's that. But a divergent thinker might think, well, I like this chord, but I wonder if there's some other things I can do occasionally when I play the chord to change the chord, to alter the sound a little bit for a moment. So let's take our A minor chord and think about what we could do. I could lift up my finger, see that? Put it back down. My first finger. Want to hear something real pretty? I could take my pinky and put it on my G note, which is the third fret on the first string, and listen how pretty that'll sound. Isn't that beautiful? And I can lift up that first finger, and put it back down so I'm playing the chord right. And then I can put my pinky on the second string, first fret, lift up again, lift up my first finger, put it down. So I could take that one A minor chord, instead of doing just a straight A minor, I could go. This is what made the Beatles have such impact on popular music, was they had an amazing ear for melody, and Paul McCartney in particular had a gift to take a chord and alter subtle things about the chord and create really great melodies. For instance, let's take a D minor chord. There's a D minor chord, pretty simple chord. You have your first finger on the F, first finger, first fret on the first string, third finger on the D, which is at the third fret, second string, and my second finger here, playing just the bottom four strings. Now, Paul McCartney, with that one D minor chord, he thought, well, what if I just change one note chromatically? A chromatic ascension or descension up and down is when you just take a note and you go like, see, I'm going like, I'm on the second string here. It's a D note, D, second fret, C sharp, first fret, C, B. He took the main note of the root note of the chord, which is a D, because it's a D minor chord. The root note is usually the name of the chord. What if I just altered that one note? What would happen to the chord? So he took the D minor and he went. Isn't that beautiful? Hear how pretty that is? So I went like D minor, then my third finger came to the second fret behind the second finger. Then I'm barring, that's actually a D minor seventh now. And then just the two fingers. And so he had a song called Michelle where he went, let's say the only words I know that you'll understand, my Michelle. But that main thing I was doing there is just taking that D minor chord and changing it. So when you look at your chord charts, you first learn these chords and then think how you can change them. Let's look at an A chord, for instance. An A chord is all at the second fret. Basically, it's the second, third, and fourth string, all on the second fret. Some people get it like this. Some people get it with their first, second, and third finger. Some people get it with their second, third, and fourth finger. But I had a song that I wrote the guitar part and then co-wrote the words and the song with my friend John Walker, which is on the My Kingdom Is Near album. It's called Bitter or Better. But that came out of me doing this very thing with an A chord, experimenting, embellishing the A chord. So here's our A chord. And you notice on the chord diagram, the lowest string is X'd out, so we're only playing these 5. We're playing the bottom 5 strings. But I started just playing with that A chord. Just lift up a finger. See, I lifted up the finger on the 2nd string. Then I put it down on the 3rd fret, and then came back here. See how pretty that is? It's just a simple A chord, but just altering it a little bit. Can you hear me crying? Then I went to a G. Do you know how I feel? Taking the A chord, lifting up the 1 finger on the 2nd string, putting it down on the 3rd fret, putting it back. Just those kind of alterations. Isn't that amazing? So, first learn these chords, and then you can think about, different ways to play them. If it's a slow song, you might want to do more of an arpeggio. Here's a C major C chord. If you lift up your 1st finger, it becomes a C major 7th. C is a very common chord. If you lift up your 1st finger, it becomes a C major 7th. That's a beautiful chord. There was a group years ago that had some great musicians, Chicago, and they used to do a lot of love songs, a lot of pretty songs. So a lot of their stuff, when they wanted to really express a tender emotion, they would use an arpeggio, which is taking the chord and playing the individual strings. So they would do a song like that if they wanted to have a very tender feeling to the song. As time goes by, I realize. Those songs would have a very slow arpeggio. What am I doing? I'm just playing the individual strings because I want a tender feeling. I had a student leading worship with a church, and she had a song, and she said, my worship, it sounds kind of, I don't know, it just needs something. If it is lacking some sort of feeling, it's a little monotonous or whatever. And so I saw her leading worship, and she was not aware of this concept we're talking about thinking about how you play the chord and different dynamics. So I think the song she was doing was a song called Heart of Worship. And so she was going on a D chord. When the music fades. She's just playing the whole song the exact same time. Simply come. But I thought, well, what if you start tender? Let's start on the arpeggio. When the music fades, all is stripped away. See, we're giving a very tender feeling at the beginning. But then when the song built, I had her strumming it more. When she was feeling the song building, when she was feeling it getting more intense, she was going more to a strum. I'm coming back to the heart of worship. You feel it building, see? But just by simply strumming the chords at one point, arpeggio at another point, thinking about the dynamics, and improved the feeling, and people really connected with God, and it was more intimate in the worship. So I hope you enjoyed our talking about chords, and you can find the charts and things that go along with this lesson at amysflashcards.com. And I also have some other lessons we'll be doing on this site, so I look forward to showing you some more things on the guitar. God bless you, and happy guitar playing.